Hi, you are welcome to another Microsoft Excel tutorials. And in today's Excel video, we are going to look at cell references in our Excel worksheet and also the types of cell references that can be used in our worksheet. And we will also learn how to use these cell references in our worksheet to manipulate our available data. And in Excel worksheet, a cell reference refers to a cell or a range of cells in a worksheet that can be used in a formula or a function in Microsoft Excel. It is also known as cell address. And now when you look at this worksheet that I have here, we have different cells here, and these cells have a cell address or a cell name, and it can be displayed in the name box. Now the cell address or the cell reference is of alphanumeric value, and it is used to identify the specific cell in a spreadsheet program. And each cell reference contains one or more letters followed by a number. And the letters identify the particular column, and also the number represents the row in the worksheet. And for you to identify a cell reference, you have to select a specific cell. And in Excel or in a spreadsheet application, a cell is the intersection of row and a column, and this cell is referred by a letter or a column header and also a row or a row number. Currently in this worksheet, we have these cells combined together to form the worksheet, and each cell in this worksheet contains a cell reference or a cell address. Therefore, the active cell in this worksheet is this cell that is selected, and this cell is located under column C and also row 8. This active cell has a cell reference or a cell name, and this cell name or cell reference can be identified in the name box, and the name box is located below the clipboard under the home tab. In this clipboard group, we have this box here, and when I place my mouse pointer there, we have the screen tip as name box, and that is the area where the cell name or the cell reference is located. So any cell that you select in this worksheet is going to have its cell reference or cell address in the name box. So now this cell is located under column F and row 6. If I select this one, we have E9, and that is what we have in the name box. So this is a cell reference which is noted by a column and a row. That is a letter and a number, and always the letter comes before the number, and that gives the description of the cell reference. Now in today's video, we are going to look at 5 different types of cell references we can use in our Excel worksheet. And the first cell reference we are going to look at is the relative cell reference. And in Excel worksheets or a spreadsheet application, these special programs by default accept every cell as a relative reference. Now in this worksheet, I have these practical test exams, and we have names of students, tests they partake in the class, and we are going to calculate for the total marks for each student. Therefore, we can use our sum function, and I have a video on how to add numbers using the sum function, both on the ribbon and also manually typing the formula in your cell. And I'm going to drop the link of that video in the description below, and also I'm going to have an end screen on that video, and you can click on it to see how to use different ways to add numbers and also manipulate data in your Excel worksheet. So we can use the sum function, then we double click on this. We are going to have this, and it says number 1, number 2, and we are going to select all these cells, close the parenthesis, and hit the enter key. Now in this cell, when I move to the formula bar, this is calculating the values in B3, C3 and D3. Therefore, if I use the fill handle and drag this to the last student, you can see that Excel has automatically adjusts this to get the total marks for the remaining students, and this type of referencing is known as relative reference. Therefore, if I click on this cell and move to the formula bar, it says that we have B4 colon D4, and this is relying on the first cell that contains the formula. When you double click, this cell is calculating 3 cells to the left of this current cell, and that is what Excel assumes, that when you copy this formula down, all these cells are going to rely on the 3 cells to the left. So this cell that we have here, which is E5, these are the 3 cells that are being manipulated to the left of this current cell, and that is what Excel uses to calculate for data in our worksheet, and this is known as relative cell reference, and this helps to easily calculate for your data in your worksheet. And this is how relative cell references works in your worksheet. It always look up to the cell beside it, whether it is below or to the right or to the left or above the cell, depending on how to use it. That is going to be a relative cell reference. So this is our first cell references we want to identify in our worksheet. Now the next cell references we want to talk about is the absolute cell reference, and this type of cell references refers to a reference whereby a particular cell is locked so that the rows and columns won't change when copied to a different cell. And to have an absolute cell reference, you add the $ to your column or your row, and that is going to make it an absolute. That is going to keep the formula in a specific cell, so that when you try to copy that formula to a different cell, that is not going to change the current formula. So let's see how absolute cell reference works in Excel. Now in this data we have calculated this total marks for the student. Therefore, we want to find the percentage for all these students, and when we add up, we are going to have 100%. So let's select this cell and type our percentage. Now before then, let's find the total for all these total marks. So select this cell, and you can hold the Alt key and the equal to sign, and when you press the enter key, we get this total marks here. We are going to calculate for the percentage all these students had in their test exams. So we select this cell, type our equal to sign, select this, and we are going to divide by the total we have here, and when you hit the enter key, this gives you a decimal number. We are going to change this to percentage, and now we have 11% for this first student. Therefore, if we drag this to the last student, what we have here is a problem. We have the correct answer in the first cell where we had our calculation, but the remaining cells have an error here. And what is the error? If I double click on this first cell, we had this being divided by the total marks, and that is the accurate answer we had here, and that is 11%. And when you double click on this 92 is divided by this empty cell, and there's nothing in this cell. Therefore, this is going to give us an error. Now to see all the formula in these cells, let's use our control key and the tilde symbol, and this is going to display the formulas in these individual cells. So the first formula is dividing E3 by E12, which is this cell and this cell. When you select this cell, this is dividing E4 by this empty cell, and also when you select this one, this is also dividing this by empty cell. Therefore, this is a relative cell reference, and that is bringing an error into our individual cell. So to solve this, this is where the absolute cell reference comes in. So let's go back and change this relative cell reference into an absolute cell reference. So now let's select this first cell. This is where our formula relies, and this cell should be locked so that all these cells that we have here are going to be divided by this total marks we have here. So we place our cursor beside the E, then we type the $ by holding the shift key and the number 7 on the keyboard, depending on the type of keyboard that you use. So we are going to place the $ at E, then we place it before the row number, which is 12. And now when we hit the enter key, we get this 11%, and when you try to drag this is going to give you all this percentage based on their individual total marks they had. And this type of cell reference is an absolute reference. Whenever you are manipulating your data and you have a cell that contains a data in a different cell or a different worksheet, always it is better for you to use the absolute reference for you to get the exact output in your cells in your worksheet. So if we use the relative reference for this type of manipulation, we are going to get an error. Therefore, the best option is to use an absolute reference. Therefore, if we add this up, we should get 100%. So let's hold the alt key and the equal to sign, and this gives us 100%. All these marks, these are their individual percentage, and that we have everything properly manipulated in our worksheet. The next cell reference we want to look at is the mixed reference, and this is where the absolute and also the relative reference comes together to help us to manipulate our data. So we are going to use this data in this worksheet, and we have a mathematical times table here, and we have these numbers under column A and also these numbers in row 3 and these different columns that we have here. And this type of data can be manipulated by using the mixed cell reference. And in spreadsheet application, mixed reference is where part of the reference is absolute and the other part is relative. So this is where the cell reference consists of both relative and absolute components. So how can we manipulate this data using mixed reference? Let's see how relative cell reference can have impact in this data. Now let's select this cell. Therefore, we are going to multiply 1 by 10. So we type equal to, we select this cell, we type our asterisk sign, select this cell, then let's hit the enter key. Therefore, if I drag this, you can see that we have 200, 6,000, 240,000 and other figures here, and this is not the accurate output we should have in these cells. When you double click on this, we have this one multiplying 10, and when you double click on this, we have 20 multiplying 10, and this type of references is dependent on relative cell reference. So it assumes that this cell is multiplying this cell, so the next cell should move to this cell. As well as if I click in this cell and double click, we have 30 multiplying 200, and this type of reference is relative, and this is going to give us an error in this particular data. So for this type of data we have here, we can only resolve this by using mixed reference. That is where we are going to have an absolute and also a relative reference. So when you check all these cells, you can see that we have a wrong manipulation here, and that is going to give us the wrong output, and that is not what we desire in this data. So relative reference has a lot of impact, but depending on your data, you have to note the kind of cell reference you have to use in your Excel worksheet, being relative, absolute, or mixed reference. So let's clear all this and see how to use our mixed reference in this Excel worksheet. Now to do this, we have all these data under column A and these ones under row 3. Therefore, if we type our formula and select this cell, multiply by this cell, what we are going to do here is to apply a dollar sign to column A, where we want to lock all these data in these cells under column A. Therefore, this is going to be maintained under column A so that the row number, which is 4, can be a relative reference. And when we come to B3, because we have all these numbers in row 3, we are going to lock row 3 and also leave B as a relative reference, so that B will allow us to move from B4, C4, D4. But for row 3, all these numbers are going to be stable. There will be no movement for these numbers, so that we can have our accurate values outputted in these individual cells. So to do this, previously we typed the dollar sign, but we can use our keyboard shortcut F4 to apply this mixed reference. So just select this cell, which is A4, and press the F4 key on the keyboard, and this is going to make all these absolute. That is $A, $4, and this is not what we want. So we are going to press the F4 once again, and now we have $4, and that is not what we want as well. So we press the F4 once again, and now we have $A4. So now we've locked this column, and now let's go and lock this row as well. So we select this, you press F4 once again, and now we have locked row 3, and we have allowed B to be a relative. Therefore, if I hit the enter key, now we have 10 times 1, which is 10, and let's drag this, and now you can see that we have 10 times this, giving us 20. So if I double click, the formula says that 20 times 1, 30 times 1, 40 times 1, 50 times 1, and this is giving us the right output that we want. And this type of references is known as mixed reference. Therefore, if we select all these cells and drag it down, we are going to have a very well outputted data in our worksheet. So I double click on this. This is multiplying 20 by 6, and that is the correct answer. 30 by 6, 40 by 6. So this type of reference, we were able to lock the column and also the row so that we can have our data well manipulated. So this is also another type of cell references in our worksheets. The next one I want us to talk about is using the absolute and also the relative reference to calculate for a running total. So let's use this worksheet. I have this weekly expenditure here. We have items, quantity, unit price, and also total price. Now, if we want to get the total price for this, we can type equal to, select this cell, we multiply by this and hit the enter key. When we drag this down, we are going to have the total price for all these individual items. Now I want to have a running total for this data, whereby if I use my absolute and relative reference, this number is going to appear in this cell, but the next number is going to be the addition of this cell and this cell. So let's see how this works in Excel. And this type of cell reference is a range cell reference, and that is where we want to calculate for the running total in our worksheet. So I'm going to select this cell and type running total. That is my column header. So now how can we calculate this? Select this cell, type equal to sum function, double click, and we are going to select this cell. Then we type our colon and select the same cell and close this bracket. Now this is referencing this cell, which is D3, and also using the same D3 as our endpoint. So this is going to be our starting point and also our end point. But in this formula, we want to make the starting point an absolute reference and also the end point as a relative reference. We want to keep the formula in this cell, which is D3. Therefore, I'm going to select this D3 and press the F4 on the keyboard, and I'm going to make this absolute. At the same time, I'm going to make this a relative reference. Therefore, if I hit the enter key, this $150 is going to appear in E3. Then this D3 is going to add this 150 to this so that we can get 550 in this cell, and that is going to be a sequence for the remaining cells, or it's going to be a pattern for the remaining cell. Therefore, when I hit the enter key, you can see that we have this number shown in this E3. If I drag this down, this is going to add this to this, and when I double click on this, we have D3 here, and this formula is adding these two cells, and that is what we have in E4. If I double click on it, this is adding these three cells together, and that is shown in E5. As you can see, it is adding all these cells, and this type of cell reference is known as range cell reference, and it helps you to find the running total of your data in your Excel worksheet. Now the last cell reference I want us to look at is the structured cell reference, and this type of cell reference is a special syntax for referencing cells in Excel tables. So this type of reference, you can use them if you have your data range converted into an Excel table. And I have a video on how to convert your range into an Excel table that gives you 4 different ways you can have such operation, and also 8 reasons why to have a conversion of your data range into an Excel table. So we are going to use this worksheet. We have this data here, and one thing you have to note is that when it comes to this structural reference, it works like a regular cell reference in formulas, but they are easier to read and also understand, and also they are very dynamic because we are dealing with Excel tables. And when it comes to this operation, you can also reference this from a different worksheet. So we will also learn that after identifying our structured cell reference, and also learn how to reference a cell in a different worksheet. So in this worksheet, I'm going to convert this data into an Excel table. Before that, I am going to delete this. Now let's convert our data range into an Excel table. So select any data in your worksheet and click on this insert tab and click on table. Now you have this dialog box that says create table, and where is the data for your table? So you are going to choose the source. So I'm going to select this cell, then I click on OK. But before then, it asks you, my table has headers, and we have these headers for our individual data, so that checkbox should be checked. So let's click on OK. Now we have our data range converted into an Excel table. You can use the table design to change your table styles. So let me choose a simple style here. I'm going to choose this one. Now I have this Excel table. How can we use this structured reference? If I want to calculate for the total marks for this 3 tests for this first student, I have to click here, type equal to, and select this cell. And when you select this cell, look at the name given to this cell that we have selected. But this cell has the cell reference as B3, and that is shown in the name box. And in the formula, we have equal to brackets, at sign, and the name of the column in which this data is located. And this type of data is a structured data because everything is being kept in this individual columns in this Excel table. So if I bring the plus sign, select this cell, this is a structured cell referencing plus this. So this type of reference based on the name given to all these individual cells makes it a structured cell referencing. Therefore, if I hit the enter key, this is going to provide the result for all these cells that we have here, because it is also dynamic based on its structured referencing. So when I hit the enter key, we have all these total marks for all these individual students that we have here. Therefore, this type of reference is very easy to use and also very dynamic, and can easily help you to work effectively in your Excel worksheet. Let's see how to use cell reference from a different worksheet. Now let me create a new worksheet here and type 50%, and I want to reference this to my Excel table. So I'm going to create a percentage here. So I'm going to reference this to my table which has the practical test exams. Therefore, I want to calculate for the percentage for all these students based on their total marks, and we are going to reference the percentage from this cell that we have here. So to do this, let's go back to our Excel table and let's type equal to, and we are going to move to this worksheet, and we are going to reference this from this current worksheet. And when I hit the enter key, we get 50% for this student, but you can see that there's a problem here. We have 0% for all these students. Let's cross check and see what the problem is. If I double click on this cell is being manipulated by D5, but when we move to this cell and double click, this has moved to D6, and when we move to D6, there is no value in this D6. If I go back and double click on this is D7, D8, D9. Therefore, we are going to have an error in this particular manipulation. So to resolve this, this is where the absolute reference comes in. So if you are referencing from a different worksheet or different cell, it is a better idea for you to use the absolute reference. So let's go back to this cell and select this D5 and make it an absolute reference by pressing the F4 on the keyboard. You can also manually type the $ before the letter and the number. And now let's hit the enter key. And this is going to give us the exact 50% that we have here in this column header. So if I double click, we have D5, D5, D5. So this is also how to reference a cell in a different worksheet in Microsoft Excel. I hope we've had a very good time and also well explained to details based on cell references that we have in our spreadsheet application. Putting this into practice will help you to have your data well manipulated in your Excel worksheet. Hope you like this video. Please give it a thumbs up and also would like to see your comments in the comment section, and we shall meet in the next video in the end screen and also in the description below. Please, I have the link in the description below on how to use your mathematical operators. Click on it and watch, and hope to have a good time. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.